Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to InsideAIR, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Squadron Leader Peter Lisney, and in this episode we're on NATO Ops again, this time in Iceland.
We need to be trained in receiving Allied forces to Iceland. It makes us qualified to receive forces with very short notice.
By lessons identified, debriefing them, explaining what we expected them, the performance went pretty steep high.
Acknowledge. Stand over.
Also, in this episode, we'll reheat a few stories just in case you missed them, and we'll be finding out who is under the hat this week.
Best location you've served?
35,000 feet in the back of a C-17 looking after patients. I think that's probably the best you can do for intensive care nurses.
Find out who is under the hat at the end of this episode. Now, the RAF normally employs its Typhoon jet fighters for land-based NATO Air Policing missions. However, this year 617 Squadron's F-35Bs took on the job for the first time. InsideAIR's Flight Lieutenant Casey went to Iceland to see how they got on. She starts by bringing us all up to speed on NATO Air Policing missions.
What comes to mind when you hear air policing mission? Whether it's a familiar term and part of your day job, or something that you've heard in the media but haven't experienced firsthand, these three words are part of our language in the UK and the Royal Air Force. Like the integration of so many NATO procedures and policies into our everyday working lives in UK defence, we hear air policing mission often. But when we sit back and reflect on these three words, only then can we comprehend the expectation and the weight that this request carries. The ask from 32 nations in our world that you'll play your part in protecting the Allied sky. That's an area of around 25 million kilometres and over 966 million people. Stepping away from the enormity of those statistics, what does this individual contribution look like? Troops must be fed and watered, the sick tended to, personnel must be paid, jets need to fly, intelligence gathered and analysed, and all these people and assets must be kept safe whilst in a host nation. The cross-sections of specialists working on an APM at any one time is astounding. At its core, an intricately planned mobilisation of personnel assembled in new surroundings to complete the assigned requirement. An orchestra of people and professions that hold steady in their specialist area of knowledge and together predict, decipher, and act on what is happening around them in real time. They're not alone. Several missions happen concurrently as Allied nations around the world feed into the Allied Air Command, or AIRCOM, which is headquartered in Ramstein, Germany. Command and control of the NATO airspace happens from two combined air operation centres, or CAOCs. The first in Spain, which covers airspace south of the Alps, and the second in Germany, covering the north. In the case of airspace violations, suspicious air activity close to the Alliance's borders, or any other kind of unsafe air traffic that doesn't adhere to international air safety norms, the relevant CAOC decides which aircraft will be used according to the location of the incident. Meticulous and capable of responding to threat or intimidation at any time, air policing is an insurance policy for peace. Through political or military means, a very clear line has been drawn in the sand, and upon it, an understanding that is spoken in any language. An attack on one ally is an attack on us all. This shared security contributes to stability and has done so since its inception. Air policing was born out of the Cold War in 1961 and has remained an integral part of NATO integrated air and missile defence for decades. From the Benelux airspace, Baltic states and eastern flank to the high north, NATO air policing remains constant in a rapidly changing security environment, giving NATO the capability to protect its skies. At a time of such hostility and tension in the world, these missions have never been so important, and along with the overall mission, the decisions, actions, and professionalism of the military personnel who are sent to complete them. I deployed to Iceland to explore life on operations from the inside and learn about the people and skills that contribute to a successful mission. It's a very wet and windy start to the day here in Iceland, as over 130 Royal Air Force personnel from a plethora of different professions and occupations move quickly about the airfield into hangars, vehicles, and the huge operations room that has been set up to accommodate the NATO Air Policing mission, Operation Masterer. They're getting ready for the last arrival to complete this RAF team, 617 Squadron and the F-35B Lightning. This aircraft is one of the most technologically advanced pieces of kit in UK defence and the world. It's designed for air superiority, strike missions, surveillance and reconnaissance, and even electronic warfare against an aggressor. So why is the Royal Air Force in Iceland?
617 Squadron are here in Iceland to carry out Icelandic Air Policing. It's in support of NATO, where we're here to deter potential adversaries from infringing NATO airspace, ensuring our solidarity to Iceland and to NATO.
Officer Commanding 617 Squadron Stuart Campbell. And whilst there are many firsts for the F-35B Lightning on this operation, it's very much business as usual for the RAF.
So this will be the first time the UK F-35B has held quick reaction alert from a land base. We've actually done it off Queen Elizabeth class carriers 2 or 3 times now, but the first time that we've done it for land, so everybody's very excited, taking a lot of lessons from Typhoon and indeed from other NATO countries who've already been here in Iceland doing this mission.
And what do you mean by QRA?
So QRA stands for Quick Reaction Alert, and that means we are on alert 24/7, where we will be holding a readiness, ready to scramble the jets and intercept any unidentified aircraft that may infringe Icelandic airspace.
And before they begin their air policing mission, they must first complete the very strict NATO accreditation requirements.
So the accreditation process will see us evaluated by a group of NATO personnel to make sure we're capable of holding quick reaction alert from Keflavik in Iceland. I expect more of that from my team. I hope we'll hit a higher standard than is expected of us by NATO, and that we will show the highest standards of the Royal Air Force through this duty.
And before the mission begins, the RAF stop and reflect on their very special friendship with Iceland.
We have very strong ties with all our NATO allies. However, Iceland has got some really strong ones dating back from the Second World War, where indeed the Royal Marines were the first allies to land in this neutral country and ensure protection to them during those hostilities. We're very proud to be here today, continuing that tradition and helping the only country in NATO that doesn't have a standing defence force.
So whilst the detachment were being watched and assessed by the multinational NATO team to earn their accreditation, I went to learn more about our special friendship with Iceland and how the only NATO country with no standing armed forces protects itself and the allies through its Icelandic Coast Guard.
My name is Jón Guðnason. I'm a captain in the Icelandic Coast Guard and I'm the commander of NATO Keflavik Air Base. In general, the Icelandic Coast Guard is providing Coast Guard tasking as Iceland does not have any military forces. The Coast Guard has 3 rotary helicopters for search and rescue and 1 fixed-wing aircraft, and 2 maritime vessels and 1 hydrographic vessel. Our day-to-day task is to provide the air surveillance for NATO over the North Atlantic and Iceland. participating in the NATO integrated air and missile defense systems as the other NATO nations are doing in real time. And we are also monitoring the activities on the sea. And we are providing host nation support 24/7, 365 days a year for all the allied nations that deploy to Iceland or are in transit between North America and Europe.
Is NATO Air Policing important, and are you happy to welcome the UK here to Iceland?
We are in daily cooperation with our colleagues at the CRC Bolmer, and we are also supporting your P8 air operations a few times a year. And this is just part of what we are doing every day. And it's good for us. We need to be trained in receiving allied forces to Iceland. It makes us qualified to receive forces with very short notice, if and when needed. So it's very important that we are extremely happy having the Royal Air Force here again, now for the first time with the F-35s.
So before the mission could begin, the UK detachment needed to pass the rigorous NATO accreditation process. The preparation and training that went into the assessment was business as usual for the RAF, but not content with passing, Commanding Officer 617 Squadron Leader Wing Commander Stuart Campbell wanted to excel.
So the accreditation process will see us evaluated by a group of NATO personnel to make sure we're capable of holding quick ration alert from Keflavik in Iceland. I expect more of that from my team. I hope we'll hit a higher standard than is expected of us by NATO, and that we will show the highest standards of the Royal Air Force through this duty.
But what were the assessors looking for?
Hello, so I'm Major Alemiers Patricia. I'm from the Belgian Air Force and I work at KOQDM in the Combat Plans Division. I am an air battle manager from my background, worked in the CRC, been a squadron commander, and then I also flew as tactical director, mission commander on NATO AWACS just before I came to UDM in the position I am currently. We are coming here to see that if we want the aircraft to be scrambled in Iceland, that the chain of communication from us to the CRC, to the pilots, into the cockpit goes flawless. We have done several tests here the previous 2 days. First we did a little dry run on the ground, that we want to see the pilots go run to the cockpit, report that they are ready, or if there is a technical failure, that was also reported back. Why do we do that? Is in case we have an unidentified non-NATO aircraft flying around Iceland, that if we scramble the QRA jets, that they are airborne on time. There is no delay, and that we can go and intercept that aircraft, and that we are sure that the skies around Iceland are safeguarded.
And how did the UK perform overall? Were you quite happy? Was it above the level of expectation?
So we were really surprised when we arrived here that the UK was ahead of schedule. They have done familiarization flights, they went to the diversion airfield in Akureyri, which normally is done during the certification itself, so they were ahead of schedule. However, when we started the dry runs on the ground, before we actually flew, we saw some hiccups because the QRA operations is not the standard role that this squadron executes. But by lessons identified, debriefing them, explaining what we expected them, the performance went pretty steep high, and so today when we actually flew, we saw a very good performance of them, so we are really satisfied. The motivation and the professionalism of the team is really good. They did a good job, I will say.
A tri-service contribution. I spoke to personnel on Operation Masterer to find out what their involvement was with passing the NATO accreditation.
So I'm Sergeant Stephanie Brandt, RAF Police, providing the security wraparound for F-35 in Iceland.
What role did you and your team play for this accreditation to occur?
So we did the developmentation of the DSAP facility, which the pilots will use to work out of to plan their missions. We also provided the full debt accreditation from a security side.
So that's a really, really busy role for you guys. There's quite a few of you here. How many people sort of make up your team?
So we're a team of 7 at the moment, covering our full special access program security security, physical security and policing on the deployment.
So now we're going into QRA. It's going to be hot weeks constantly for the team. What will your team be doing now?
We will be maintaining the deployed Special Access Programme facility, and we will be providing the pilots with the classified material they need to go up in the air.
So it's just business as usual for you guys, it doesn't stop?
Absolutely, it'll be very busy for us, but we'll make it work.
Flight Lieutenant Nathaniel Logan, I'm the DLG Commander on Opmaster.
What part did your team and yourself play for this accreditation?
We came out about 3 weeks early, helped set everything up, so we brought logistics officers like myself, we brought movers, we brought suppliers, brought drivers, RAF police for security, and began moving all the equipment for our sea freight or off of the aircraft and through land move as well through Europe, and began setting up everything that we would need, whether that be mat tractors which tow the aircraft or forklifts to move the actual equipment or move heavier equipment like tools off of the freight that had arrived, and then began making sure that the working area was suitable for the team to get ready for the mission ahead.
It's a huge ask, especially when you consider there's over 130 personnel on this detachment. You were the forward party. Was it? I mean, I can imagine that there was months of planning involved in this.
Yeah, so there was a lot of planning. I think the first recce was earlier this year, and then I got selected for it around April, and then I had to begin planning my own movement. So I've selected a lot of members from my own team back home in Marham and selected people to come out to do that. So it's quite nice for me to choose who I wanted to come. So I chose some of the best guys that I've got, and then we could start planning for what we were going to do when we got here. So that was included sort of booking vehicles, looking at maps of where we were going to put things, all that good stuff that you need to do to get ready here. So we had a good amount of time and it gave a thorough plan as well.
It will be hot weeks from here on in. What happens for you?
So logistics at the beginning is always about setup, so getting everything in the right place for the right people, and now it's sustainment. So we'll look to sustain people through supply elements that we brought with us, or we can have things shipped out that they may need. And then also from an MT side, we'll just continue to do what they do, which is obviously moving people out where they need to be, QRA drives, etc. Things that we can do to support the up through the means that they do. We're back home at Marham, so it is no real change for them here. Now we're set up.
Hi, my name is Jen O'Neill. I'm Sub-Lieutenant here, the deployed admin officer. I'm with the Royal Navy normally, but I'm part of the 617 Squadron, so we're a joint squadron. Whilst deployed here as the DO, my role is like general admin of everything, making sure welfare is good for everyone, looking after people, making sure the important things like food, accommodation, trips out, all of those fun things. So yeah, that's my priority job.
Now that's over 130 personnel, so I imagine that this role is incredibly busy for you.
It's a pretty busy role, and pretty much something new every day comes up, but that's why it's fun and we get to learn new things every day, so I enjoy it.
All right, Jen, now we've just been at the NATO accreditation ceremony, so now we've achieved that standard. What happens next for you and your team?
So for our team, hopefully the busyness will steady out now, but everything is still the same. Everyone needs the same level of personnel help that they needed at the beginning. So whilst we get into the routine and flying becomes a bit more consistent and we're on cue, nothing will really change too much for us. We'll keep looking after the people, making sure everything's perfect and ready as and when we need it.
It's great to be here in Iceland. We've been welcomed by some incredible people. I feel like everyone's pretty happy. Is that your kind of summary? Everyone's enjoying their time here?
Yeah, definitely. Like the host nation have been incredible, so supportive. We've been pretty lucky with the weather so far. It's been sunny almost every day this week, and yeah, everyone's really buzzing today with the accreditation. Everyone's worked so hard this week, and it's really good to see hard work paying off, and hopefully everyone can have a nice weekend before lots of hard work again starting on Monday.
For Varg, Flight Lieutenant. So on Opmaster and my team have been busy working in the background, making sure that our operating environment here at Keflavik Air Base is safe for the F-35s to deploy. Now we've received our NATO accreditation, we're going to be working to make sure that those standards are maintained throughout the rest of the deployment.
What was your contribution?
So my contribution was collecting a bunch of operating evidence to present towards our Lightning Force commander, making sure that he was content with sending 4 of our F-35Bs here from the UK.
You've got a hard-working team. How many people roughly are in your team and working to compile evidence of this nature?
So on my team, normally there's about 12 people, most of which are currently back in the UK, providing support to the operation here in Iceland.
Now that we're about to start our QRA and we'll be maintaining hot weeks until the end of this detachment, what does that mean for you?
For me, that just means making sure that our engineering standards and practices are maintained throughout the deployment, making sure that all of our technicians are maintaining the jets to the highest standard to make sure that we uphold our obligations to NATO.
Next, the hard work began with personnel on Operation Masterer, now on Quick Reaction Alert, or QRA, and held at ready with the ability to scramble and be airborne within minutes of an alarm. I spoke to Officer Commanding 617 Squadron Wing Commander Stuart Campbell to find out what happens when the jets are scrambled.
617?
Acknowledge.
Acknowledge. Scramble.
Operation Masterer is the first time UK F-35B Lightnings have flown a QRA mission from land. I took the opportunity to get up close to this incredible piece of kit. One of the great days on this detachment was welcoming some familiar friends to Iceland. Transiting through Iceland on their 60th anniversary tour, the Royal Air Force acrobatic team were inbound.
So one thing you learn very early on in your time with the Reds is that everybody's always watching the team and often taking photographs and posting them on social media. So you're very, very conscious that you're upholding the tradition of the team and you want to look really smart. So I expect them to arrive in close formation. I have no doubt they'll put some smoke on as they do the signature arrival, breaking into Southfield, coming into the meetings next day, and really close tight formation before the shutdown.
And the Royal Air Force certainly put on a great display in Iceland as personnel on operations and exercise assembled on the West Apron at Keflavik Airport to see the F-35B Lightning, along with 2 Poseidon P-8s, 1 A400M, 12 Hawks, aka the Red Arrows, and an Icelandic Coast Guard helicopter.
Hi, it's Squadron leader Andy King here. I'm the Senior Engineering Officer for the Royal Air Force Red Arrows.
Waiting to meet them were members of the UK and Icelandic media and an array of service personnel.
I wasn't expecting this type of reception, to be honest. There's so many people who've turned out to see us, and that's just great to see. Iceland's a fantastic place, looks it already, and importantly for us as well, it's a massive milestone to get that first leg of the Atlantic crossing done too.
Very important year for the Red Arrows. How are you and the team feeling right now?
Excited. We've had a really successful UK season. We've delivered 100% of the shows with a 9-ship formation, which is fantastic, and just looking to try and do the same in Canada to share that celebration with the Canadian Air Force.
Red Arrows, welcome to Iceland.
As the UK's role on Operation Master 2024 draws to a close, 175,000 litres of fuel, 44 transport vehicles, 16 specialist vehicles, including tractors, forklifts and cherry pickers, 400 toolkits for F-35B maintenance, 60 engineers, and over 130 personnel have contributed to the success of this NATO Air Policing mission.
Hi, I'm AS1 Emma Kerwin. This is Reheat, where we take a look back at some of the RAF stories you might have missed. A UK satellite to support military operations has successfully launched into space. It's UK Space Command's first satellite which can capture daytime images and videos of the Earth's surface. The aim is to strengthen the UK's intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance capabilities. Anti-aircraft laser weapons that can take down drones have been fired from the back of a combat vehicle for the first time. Manufacturer Raytheon UK and Defence Equipment and Support successfully tested it on ranges in Porton Down at full power, mounted on a Wolfhound armoured car. Tributes have been paid to an RAF chef who died on the A1 in Cambridgeshire. AS1 Sean Thomas, a member of 3 Mobile Catering Squadron, has been described as extremely hard-working, popular and the life and soul of the workplace. He died on the 8th of August after being hit by a vehicle near the entrance to RAF Wittering. A statement from RAF Wittering says his loss will be intensely felt by everyone who knew him. A Special Forces veteran who stopped a pipe bomb attack on a barracks in Northern Ireland has signed on Cromwell's Wall of Honour. Mike Hawkes joined the army in 1975 but was forced to leave 3 years later due to injury. He later re-enlisted and in 1982 he sailed for the Falklands War before applying for Special Forces selection. Mick spoke to RAF, Royal Navy and Army personnel at an aircrew training course about his 14-year career in the SAS and how he earned the Queen's Commendation for Bravery. And 86 members of the RAF Pipes and Drums have presented the new Sovereign banner to the King during a special event at Balmoral Castle. It's traditionally carried by the senior RAF Piper Major during ceremonial duties for the RAF. The RAF Pipes and Drums marched on to perform a specially selected repertoire of music for the King, other members of the royal family as well, including the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh and the Chief of the Air Staff. That was Reheat for Inside Air.
I'm AS1 Ben Russell, and this is Under the Hat, where we get to know an aviator in less than a minute. Name you're known by.
My name is John Drummond. I'm a flight lieutenant and based at Tactical Medical Wing, RAF Brighton North.
What's your profession?
I'm an intensive care nurse in the Princess Mary's Royal Air Force Nursing Service.
What's the best thing about your job?
The best thing about my job is I currently train the doctors and nurses on how to use the equipment for the critical care air support team capability.
Hardest part of your job?
The hardest part is probably being sat down in an office when I want to be out working.
Best location you've served?
35,000 feet in the back of a C-17 looking after patients. I think that's probably the best you can do for intensive care nurses.
What bit of luxury kit do you never deploy without?
Never deploy without something to sit on. Always take a cushion or a pillow with you because your comfort is paramount, especially when you need to get up and start working.
And what's your proudest moment in the RAF?
Probably getting my operation medal for Mali, West Africa.
Thank you, Flight Lieutenant Drummond, for keeping us in rude health on another episode of Under the Hat.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.